Hey everyone, so we're back again with another Armchair Sword Talk video, and today we're going to talk about why, well, it's not that Kiken Ichi is wrong, I think that the way that it's taught is wrong. Because a lot of people now, they have this idea that Kiken Ichi means that your hands and your feet have to move strictly together, and I think that's just wrong. I think at a higher level you have to separate the handwork from the footwork to land effective hits and to block even better. And we'll talk about two situations about that and why. So Kiken Ichi is the idea that the mind, the sword, and the body move together, which is great. But I think that the way that it's taught is often that people teach that your foot and your hands have to move together. And look, it's not completely wrong. I still teach it as a good basics for my beginners because I think that it gives a good fundamental structure. And the idea where it comes from is from power generation. So if you throw a cut with just the hands and then your body, then the cut's really just been done with the arms and there's not a lot of power to it. Whereas if you throw it with the hands and the body together, then there's a lot more power and a lot more structure behind the cut. If we were to take it to an extreme of power alone, you could actually move the body in first and then wind up and throw the cut and probably have the most powerful cut. But if you did that, then you would just get killed by the time you moved your body in without having thrown anything in return. So Kiken Ichi is a good start, but you can't just teach it as the hands and the body go together. I don't think that's strictly correct. I think that the hands and the body need to be separated depending on what you want to do. So we'll talk about two situations. The first is when you're trying to attack on a first intention strike. So what I mean by that is that two opponents, they come into distance, and now they're at the distance where with one step they can land a hit. If you do Kiken Ichi, then your hands and your body move together. And what your opponent will see is they'll see your body move because it's the biggest target, and their kinetic vision will pick it up the quickest. And by the time you started moving, then they will already be moving to block, and you will not land at a hit against a good opponent. The reason why is because you land a hit on an opponent on a first intention strike because the time from your sword to hitting their body is shorter than their reaction time from when they've noticed you moving. And so if you're moving everything all at once, the only time when you'll get there is when you get stupidly close, that by the time you start moving, it's shorter than the reaction time. And a good opponent just won't let you get that close. You know, by the time you come into their danger zone, if you cross that first, they'll have attacked you first. So how do we get around this? Well, I think that we do it by separating the hands and shooting them out first, and then throwing the cut from with the rest of the body. So if you use the sword to lead the way, then it's a much smaller target, much harder to pick up, and then the body follows. You've earned all of this time from the sword gaining some distance before they've reacted to the body moving. And you know, we're not talking about an order of seconds, it's an order of microseconds, but it's just that this will gain some more distance and time to the landing of the strike before the opponent's kinetic vision picks up the biggest target moving and gives them the most reaction time to see things moving. Now people often say, well, if I do that, then won't I just throw my hands into the opponent's range and then they'll snipe my hands? And if you're just doing it with the hands, then yes. So there's actually a step before that, which is that the sword has to go before the hands and then the hands extend in. So the sword creates cover, creates a threat that they cannot ignore, because if they do and try and take the hands, you will just take their head. So the order of operations, if you're coming in for a first intention strike that you want to land, is sword, hands, body, rather than sword, hands, body all at once. You'll give away too much with the body movement first. So the sword has to lead, then the hands, then the body. And like I said, it's an order of microseconds, not, you know, seconds apart. There is one exception to this, which is if you're doing a thrust, where you can get the point of your sword lined up between their eyes, then you can bring it in, and because it's right between their eyes, then it's much harder to tell the distance, And you can leave that there for, a much longer time compared to a strike, and then follow through with the body to land that thrust. And I'll show you that one here. Now the reason why this one works is because a thrust, there's not much rotational movement, so everything is like a pile driver movement, so you still can't get a strong thrust even by separating the hands much earlier than the body movement. But for most strikes it's an order of microseconds. Let's talk about case number 2, where you are moving backwards to parry. So in this situation, then people say, well, move the hands and the body together so that you've got a strong block and you're out of the way. And it's not wrong, but I think that we can make it even better by moving the body first and then the hands later. The reason for this is that moving the body, stepping back and moving the body out when you're parrying is a really good strategy because it buys you more time, more of that reaction time, because it takes longer for their sword to reach you. And if you buy yourself that time, you have all the time in the world to make that decision of when to parry. And so by throwing a later parry, it means that the opponent has less time to react to your parry. If you throw an early parry, then the opponent cutting on their line will see that you're throwing a parry and they won't finish that line. They'll change their line to somewhere where you're not parrying and take the open line. And that's the whole idea of feints. You try and draw out an early parry so that you can change your line and go for something else. So by moving backwards first, you buy yourself the time, and then you start blocking to that closed line, and you can see if they've started to change that line, well then you can block where they're going to instead. Or if they're dead set on going for this one, then you still know that they're going for that one, and then you can just close out that line. As long as that parry comes in time to still cover you. So again, it's not an order of body move out, then hands. It's body starts moving first, and microseconds later then you're moving the hands. But it's this key little change that makes a huge difference in your sparring. So, look, I don't think Kikentai Ichi is completely wrong. I think it's the way that it's taught in a lot of places that's wrong, where everything has to move together. And I think that most people who fight at a high level, Kendoko, who do a lot of sparring and they land a lot of first attention hits, they actually already separate it. They move the hands before they move the feet. And it'll be interesting if you're one of those people who land those things to film yourself and have a look and see, is everything really moving all at once, or are you actually starting the hands first? You probably are. So I hope that's interesting. I hope you liked it. I'll still continue to teach my beginners the hands and feet move together, but for my more advanced students, I'll be separating it and getting them to really think about what's the intention behind the action, and can we separate the hands and the feet to make that even better. So with that, I'll see you next time.